A sexual predator stalks a child across a school lobby and then into the bathroom. This chilling video was captured on an elementary school's surveillance cameras.
Saw the opportunity and it just happened.
The attack on the child leaves many questioning what broke down in security that allowed it to happen.
Our 8 News investigative reporter AJ Legault obtained that alarming video you'll see only on 8. He joins us live in the studio tonight. AJ?
Christina Juan, it's video that is in many ways hard to watch. A child targeted in a place where he should feel safe. Tonight we're examining not just what happened, but more importantly, how it happened and what's being done to prevent another child from being victimized.
Why'd you attack that little boy?
Leslie Rayfield Johnson Jr. recently pled guilty to aggravated sexual battery of a child. He's the man in this video that sends chills down the spine of all who see it.
It's really heart-wrenching and it's frustrating and you get angered over it.
For Louisa Sheriff's Department Major Donald Lowe, it's a case that hits close to home.
I have granddaughters in that same school.
As does School District Superintendent Dr. Deborah Pettit.
It is heartbreaking, and as superintendent, you know, I feel a huge responsibility for every child here.
Here's what happened at Jewett Elementary, March 6th, 2012. 45-year-old Leslie Johnson Jr. walks into the school. You can see in the surveillance footage as he stands around for several minutes in the lobby, appearing to wait for someone to come to the office window. No one does, but a 10-year-old boy, whom we're obviously not identifying, walks out of the office. Johnson looks to see if anyone is watching and charges after the child, following him into the bathroom. He was alone with the boy for several minutes.
It's very chilling, both as a professional and as a father and grandfather.
It wasn't until a school custodian happens to walk in the bathroom that Johnson, acting strangely, rushes out. The boy would leave a few minutes later, unnoticed by any adults. When he got home, he told his parents what had happened. They called the sheriff's department, who reviewed the school's surveillance tape. Leslie Johnson Jr. was ID'd as the man in the video and quickly arrested. We tried to question his lawyer outside of court.
Can I speak with you a second about your client?
No comment on that.
Can you tell us, just has he shown any remorse about what's happened at all?
No comment. And yes, he's shown remorse.
The investigation revealed Johnson had no history as a child predator. In fact, he had no criminal history at all.
There's no way to predict it. There's no pre-warning signs or anything like that.
He also had a legitimate reason to be in the school.
This wasn't a stranger coming in. This was someone who had come in the school and picked up children before.
Johnson was on an approved pickup list. He regularly dropped off and picked up young family members at the school. But it still raises the very serious question. How was he able to go into an elementary school, chase after a child with no security or staff noticing? We learned the school district used to have door monitors stationed in the lobby, but at the time of Johnson's attack, no longer did.
With our budget constraints, we had removed those positions. We did away with those positions. And instead, we used one of the secretaries from the office to check individuals in.
There was supposed to be somebody at this window at that time, is that correct?
Yes, one of the secretaries.
And that day, there just wasn't?
There was a secretary there, but I think at one point she was doing other duties and responsibilities, and her back may have been turned from the window.
Hindsight being 2020, the school district realized it needed to make major changes, not just at Jewett Elementary, but at all the county schools.
Hopefully, we've sealed up that crack.
As you walk through the door of Jewett Elementary, there are now 2 new security measures that are readily apparent. There's this desk where someone always sits when school is in session, keeping an eye on just who's walking through the door. And also, take a look at the bathroom over here. They've now clearly marked every bathroom in the school as adults only or students only.
We definitely don't want to have adults and students behind closed doors. So we've tried to make student-only areas and adult-only areas because once somebody steps behind a closed door, you can't really monitor what's happening.
Johnson is set to be sentenced tomorrow morning. He faces up to 20 years. Meanwhile, in light of this sex attack and also the Sandy Hook school shooting in Connecticut, the Louisa Sheriff's Department is asking the county to fund 4 new deputy positions so they can have a resource officer in every school.
You said in court that you wouldn't have a problem with him coming back into a school, and you're on the school board here in Louisa County. Does that send a bad message?
A courtroom shocker in Louisa County. A school board member testifies as a character witness for a sexual predator who targeted a child at an elementary school.
Investigative reporter AJ Legault joins us now with the bizarre turn of events in a story you'll see only on 8. AJ?
This video shows Leslie Johnson Jr. stalking a child through an elementary school and into a bathroom where he sexually assaulted it. Before a judge sentenced Johnson today, witnesses were called to testify on his behalf. One of them, a Louisa school board member. It's video that strikes right at the heart of any parent who sees it.
That makes me want to pull him out and homeschool. Keep him at home with me.
Leslie Rayfield Johnson Jr. pled guilty to aggravated sexual battery of a child. This surveillance video clearly shows him check to make sure no one's watching before charging into a bathroom after a 10-year-old boy at Jewett Elementary School.
The moment the defendant walked into the school that day, he was looking for prey, and unfortunately he found it.
Our previous reports have already exposed the cracks in security that allowed Johnson unsupervised access into the school. He was there to pick up a family member. At his sentencing, Johnson told a judge, quote, "I'd like to say I'm so sorry for going to the school and doing what I did to that child. I'm very sorry." The judge also heard from a number of family friends who were called to testify as character witnesses. Among them, this guy, who's no ordinary citizen.
AJ Legault, I'm from Channel 8.
Oh, okay.
I wanted to ask you a question or two about your testimony in court today.
Alan Jennings is a Louisa County school board member. He testified that he once taught Leslie Johnson in school and knows him through church. When asked by the prosecutor if he thought Johnson should be allowed to go back into a school to pick up kids, Jennings said he wouldn't have a problem with that because he knows Johnson and his character.
I wanted to ask you a question or two about your testimony in court today.
Ask her over there, if you don't mind.
Well, I wanted to ask you just because you're on the school board.
No, I cannot.
Well,
I really cannot.
I mean, you said in court that you wouldn't have a problem with him coming back into a school, and you're on the school board here in Louisa County. Does that send a bad message? You aren't willing to talk with us about this?
While the school board member is vouching for the convicted sex offender's character and dodging our questions, parents with kids in Louisa schools walked out of court fuming about what they witnessed and what they consider the light sentence handed down by the judge.
5 years? You just gave him a slap on the wrist. He messed with somebody's child.
Did a school board member's vouching for his character play a role in Johnson having 15 of his 20 years behind bars suspended? We'll likely never know, but that doesn't mean parents are happy that a man who'd attack a little boy in a school will be back on the street in just a few short years.
I don't agree with the sentence, you know, but I mean, I'm not the one to judge. That's only up to God, you know, so, but I just still don't think, you know, that 5 years was a sufficient sentence.
I spoke with a number of people with Louisa schools and in county leadership. None were too happy to hear about this situation with a school board member. The chairman of the county school board issued the following statement. Mr. Jennings did not speak on behalf of or with the authority of the school board. Now,
you said in court that you wouldn't have a problem with him coming back into a school, and you're on the school board here in Louisa County. Does that send a bad message?
A courtroom shocker in Louisa County. A school board member testifies as a character witness for a sexual predator who targeted a child at an elementary school. This video here shows Leslie Johnson Jr. stalking that child through the elementary school and into a bathroom where he sexually assaulted him. Before a judge sentenced Johnson to 5 years in prison today, witnesses were called to testify on his behalf. One of them, that Louisa school board member. 8 News investigative reporter AJ Legault has our continuing coverage tonight.
just hours after the man behind the elementary school sex attack was sentenced to prison, the county school board gathered here to meet, but there was one very conspicuous absence. A sign with his name on it, but nothing but an empty seat where Louisa school board member Alan Jennings normally sits. Earlier in the day, he seemed perfectly healthy, walking out of the courtroom where he just testified as a character witness for Leslie Rayfield Johnson Jr. He pled guilty to aggravated sexual battery of a child after being caught on tape stalking a 10-year-old boy into a bathroom at Jewett Elementary. The sex attack horrified parents.
It's crazy. As a parent, I mean, your child's not safe anywhere. And that's crazy to know.
Here's something else parents in Louisa are calling crazy, what Alan Jennings said in court. He testified that he once taught Johnson in school and knows him through church. At the time of the attack, Johnson was in the school to pick up a young family member. When asked by the prosecutor if he thought the convicted sex offender should be allowed to go back into a school to pick up kids, Jennings said he wouldn't have a problem with that because he knows Johnson and his character.
I wanted to ask you a question or two about your testimony in court today.
Ask her over there if you don't mind.
Well, I wanted to ask you just because you're on the school board.
No, I cannot.
Well,
I really cannot.
I mean, you said in court that you wouldn't have a problem with him coming back into a school, and you're on the school board here in Louisa County. Does that send a bad message? You aren't willing to talk with us about this?
While Jennings dodges our questions and is a no-show at the school board meeting, the chairman of the school board agreed to be interviewed.
He did not speak on behalf or had the authority to speak for the school board. As individual school board members, everybody has the right to speak their opinion.
Judging by the comments appearing on our Facebook page, Alan Jennings' opinions expressed at the sentencing of the man behind a sex attack inside a county school were not popular with constituents. Will school board member Alan Jennings publicly address his decision to vouch for the character of a convicted sex offender? When we get answers, you'll get answers. In Louisa, AJ Legault, 8 News.
You said in court that you wouldn't have a problem with him coming back into a school, and you're on the school board here in Louisa County. Does that send a bad message?
It's an 8 News investigation that has one local community outraged.
A school board member testifying as a character witness for a convicted sex offender says he wouldn't have a problem allowing the molester back on school property.
But tonight it seems that school board member is backtracking on his statement. Investigative reporter AJ Legault joins us live tonight with continuing coverage. AJ?
Christina Wan, you've seen the video where Louisa school board member Alan Jennings refuses to answer my questions and drives away. But in an interview published in today's Central Virginian, Jennings says he misspoke. It was a sentencing for this guy, Leslie Rayfield Johnson Jr., busted on camera, stalking a little boy across the lobby of Jewett Elementary School into a bathroom where he sexually assaulted him. Johnson admitted to the court what he'd done, saying, "I'd like to say I'm so sorry for going to the school and doing what I did to that child. I'm very sorry." Before a judge pronounced sentence, Johnson's lawyer called 4 character witnesses to the stand. Johnson's mom, his minister, and a childhood friend. But he also called a man well known in the Louisa community, Alan Jennings, who sits on the school board. When asked by the prosecutor if he thought Johnson should be allowed to go back into a school to pick up kids, Jennings said he wouldn't have a problem with that because he knows Johnson and his character. He gave more or less the same answer when a surprised-sounding Commonwealth's attorney, Rusty McGuire, reiterated the same question. Trying to make sense of the bizarre testimony in defense of a sexual predator who attacked a child in a school.
AJ Legault from Channel 8.
Oh, okay.
I wanted to ask you a question or two about your testimony in court today.
We approached Jennings outside of court as he got in his car.
Well, I wanted to ask you just because you're on the school board.
No, I cannot.
Well,
I really cannot.
I mean, you said in court that you wouldn't have a problem with him coming back into a school, and you're on the school board here in Louisa County. Does that send a bad message? You aren't willing to talk with us about this?
Later that same night, Jennings was a no-show at the monthly school board meeting. And reacting to our reports,
he should have never done that, being a school board member, and this is a convicted sex offender we're talking about.
Outraged parents began calling for Jennings to be removed from office.
We are banding together and hopefully getting that petition out, but we would like to just see him resign. That's what he needs to do.
The Thursday morning edition of the Central Virginian references a phone interview they had with Jennings in which he says he had misspoken and he meant to say the opposite of what he did. And the series of questions he was asked were complicated. Our Facebook page has been flooded with comments. Nikki Atkins writes, "When it comes to the safety and well-being of our children and the children in our school system, there is no margin for error and no excuse for misspeaking." Wanting to give Jennings a chance to further explain, we called his home and office numbers listed on the school board website. We emailed him and even went and knocked on his door. But so far, all we've gotten from Jennings is that slamming door.
Does that send a bad message? You aren't willing to talk with us about this?
And exhaust fumes as he drove away.
Judging by just how upset parents in the school district are, I'd say this is likely not the last we've heard of this story.
New information on a story that has outraged a local community. A school board member in Louisa testifying in court that he would be okay with a convicted sex offender coming back onto school property to pick up children. 8 News investigative reporter AJ Legault joins us live with the latest developments. AJ?
Christina, school board member Alan Jennings still refuses to discuss with us his bizarre courtroom testimony. But in a published report, he says he misspoke when asked whether he had a problem with the child molester being allowed back on school property. But we've obtained this official court transcript, which shows he was asked the question numerous times and stood by the answer that now has parents calling for him to be removed from office.
Alan Jennings' refusal to answer our questions about his serving as a character witness at the sentencing for a sexual predator who stalked a child across a school lobby and into a bathroom have been well documented.
I mean, you said in court that you wouldn't have a problem with him coming back into a school, and you're on the school board here in Louisa County. Does that send a bad message? You aren't willing to talk with us about this?
The only public statement Jennings has made has been a brief phone interview with the Central Virginian, in which he's quoted as saying he misspoke and he meant to say the opposite of what he did. Well, we've now obtained the official court transcript that shows just what Jennings was asked and how he answered. When asked what type of person admitted child molester Leslie Johnson is, Jennings responds, "He's a very fine person. He's of good character and also of good reputation." Prosecutor Rusty McGuire says he wants to make sure Jennings understands what he's saying. He asks him 3 different times if he would have a problem with Johnson coming back to the school where he sexually assaulted a 10-year-old boy. Each time, Jennings' response indicates he'd be okay with it. The 3rd time he's asked, he responds, "Personally, I don't have a problem with that, you know?" He's then asked a 4th time by defense attorney Stephen Hewlett, "Why wouldn't you have a problem with it?" Jennings responds, "Just based on past experience."
Numerous parents in the district are now circulating petitions calling for Alan Jennings' service on the school board to be a thing of the past. There's even a Facebook page calling for his resignation. Well, the school board has called a special closed-door meeting tomorrow night to discuss personnel and legal matters. We've been unable to confirm if this issue with Jennings is going to be on the table. If you'd like to read Alan Jennings' complete court testimony, we've posted it on our website, WRSC.com. Just click on News and then the Investigates tab. As always, if there's a story you want me to check out, just send me an email to ajinvestigates@WRSC.com, or you can always find me on Facebook. That's also under AJ Investigates.
Why don't you stop and talk with us?
A local school board member under fire after courtroom comments he made in support of a child molester. Tonight, he continues to duck questions and avoid our cameras. 8 News investigative reporter AJ Legault is just back from Louisa County. He joins us. AJ, Alan Jennings was there at tonight's school board meeting.
Yeah, that's right, Christina. After being a no-show at the last school board meeting, Alan Jennings, who's drawn a lot of criticism from parents for his comments saying he'd be okay with a convicted sex offender being allowed back on school property, he made his first public appearance. But as we found out, he still doesn't want to talk about his actions. Take a look.
Mr. Jennings, AJ Legault, I'd like to talk with you for a second.
Alan Jennings refuses to pause, rushing away.
Why don't you stop and talk with us?
When we try to speak with him on his way into a closed-door school board meeting. The embattled board member drawing fire in the community after appearing as a character witness in court for this child molester who sexually assaulted a 10-year-old boy inside Jewett Elementary School. While his decision to serve as a character reference for Leslie Johnson raised eyebrows, it was his comments when asked by prosecutor Rusty McGuire if he'd be okay with Johnson coming back to the school to pick up children that's really drawn the community's ire. The question was posed 3 different times, and each time Jennings' response indicates he'd be okay with it. The 3rd time he's asked, he responds, "Personally, I don't have a problem with that, you know?" But parents do have a problem with it, creating a Facebook page calling for Jennings' ouster from the school board and circulating a petition to force him out of office. After the board let out, we again approached Jennings.
Mr. Jennings, are you willing to talk with us for a minute?
Hey, how you doing?
Hi, how are you?
Okay, nice.
Will you stop and talk with us for a second?
No, and trust, I cannot talk, under the circumstances, but nice that y'all coming here tonight, so have a good evening.
Do you think the community deserves an explanation of what you said?
That was all Jennings would say as he rushed back outside. Strangely, not going to his personal car that he arrived in, but instead hopping into the open door of a waiting minivan.
Well, parents in Louisa tell me they plan to file a petition with the court later this week asking for Jennings to be removed from office.
I don't like it at all because I have to pay taxes myself.
He decides how your tax dollars are spent, but doesn't always pay his share. Our investigation reveals a prominent elected official is one of the biggest delinquent taxpayers in his community. We first introduced you to Louisa School Board member Alan Jennings last month. He came under fire after he served as a character witness for a convicted child molester who attacked a student in an elementary school. Now, responding to a viewer tip to dig into his background, we uncovered Jennings as one of the biggest tax scofflaws in the county.
Hey, how you doing?
He's a prominent local businessman, is on the school board, is a past member of Louisa County's Board of Supervisors. But Alan Jennings, whose position has him deciding how millions in tax dollars will be spent, has not been properly paying his own taxes.
You don't have that many individuals that owe that much money.
Henry Wash is Louisa County Treasurer. We questioned him after discovering Alan Jennings owes the county big bucks in unpaid real estate taxes.
Am I fair in saying that Mr. Jennings is in the top % of delinquent taxpayers as far as amount owed?
Yes, sir. That's fair.
Records filed with the county registrar when Jennings ran for public office show he owns numerous businesses and has major real estate holdings. Using the official Commissioner of Revenue's website, we discovered Jennings currently owns 22 properties, but has been blowing off paying taxes for years.
But he does have very much real estate owed to the county.
Right now it's almost $60,000?
That's true. Yes.
Jennings owns this piece of land on Holly Springs Drive. Back taxes total more than $1,600. On this property on Paynes Mill Road, delinquent taxes total $8,723. Rental property on Jefferson Highway in Montpelier has a past due tax bill of more than $4,900, dating back to 2007. At this 5-unit apartment complex on Thomason Road, tenants tell us they pay Jennings $450 a month in rent. Despite bringing in more than $2,200 a month in income, this property's unpaid tax bill is on the plus side of $5,300. The site of one of Jennings' businesses, Designer Homes Concepts, has the highest unpaid tax bill. It rings in at more than $9,000. The list goes on and on and on.
He should be paying the taxes. That's what I'm doing now.
Much to the dismay of Jennings' constituents, who are trusting him to wisely spend their millions in tax money rebuilding Louisa schools destroyed by the earthquake.
Don't think it's appropriate to be going years and years without paying them?
No, I don't. Because if it were me, they'd been done did something about it.
But what do you think when you hear that he owes nearly $60,000 in unpaid taxes?
I think it's kind of ridiculous.
Leave a message.
Mr. Jennings, this is AJ Legault with Channel 8 News. I'm calling to see if you'd be willing to speak with me. Our attempts to discuss the issue with Jennings have proven unsuccessful, but that's not surprising.
I wanted to ask you a question or two about your testimony in court today.
Given his reaction to our questions about his statements in court that he'd have no problem with a convicted sex offender being allowed back on school grounds.
I mean, you said in court that you wouldn't have a problem with him coming back into a school, and you're on the school board here in Louisa County. Does that send a bad message? You aren't willing to talk with us about this?
In fact, every time we try to speak with Jennings...
Mr. Jennings, AJ Legault, I'd like to talk with you for a second. Why don't you stop and talk with us?
He books it, rushing away. This is the most we've gotten out of him.
Will you stop and talk with us for a second?
No, and trust, I cannot talk, under the circumstances, but nice that y'all coming here tonight. So.
But the circumstances of not paying his tax bill is not something he can avoid, according to County Treasurer Henry Wash.
I'm planning on using all the collection tools available by statute to collect their taxes, including judicial sale of properties the past 2 years.
The county treasurer tells us Jennings is on a payment plan with a collection agency and the county to begin to repay his back taxes. In an email, Jennings' attorney tells me he's also attempting to liquidate real estate to pay his tax bills.
He decides how your tax dollars are spent, but doesn't pay his share. Back in March, an 8 News investigation revealed a prominent elected official was the biggest delinquent taxpayer in his community. Now, as investigator AJ Legault reports, his community is taking action to get what they are owed.
Pay up or lose your property. That's the message Louisa County is now sending to one of its most well-known politicians.
With his position on the school board, Alan Jennings has a say in how millions of your tax dollars are spent. But we found he's not paying his fair share.
How much money does he still owe the county?
A little over $63,000.
Jennings, a prominent local businessman and former county supervisor, is Louisa's biggest tax deadbeat.
To my knowledge, he's the only individual that we have that owes that much money to the county.
County Treasurer Henry Wash recently took out this ad in the local newspaper, listing delinquent taxpayers facing judicial sale of their property to pay back taxes. Alan Jennings has 21 properties on the list. Among them, this 5-unit apartment complex on Thomason Road, where tenants tell us they pay Jennings $450 a month in rent. Despite grossing $2,200 in monthly income, the property's unpaid tax bill is more than $5,400.
They ought to take his property.
Folks we spoke with in the community tell us they expect better from those they elect to hold public office.
If you can't keep your own house straight, how are you supposed to keep our house straight?
Why don't you stop and talk with us?
Jennings has ignored our repeated phone calls and requests for an interview. We first began the investigation that exposed his tax issues back in February, after he made bizarre statements in court that he'd have no problem with a convicted sex offender who'd attacked a little boy in a school bathroom being allowed back on school grounds.
I wanted to ask you a question or two about your testimony in court today.
Ask her over there, if you don't mind.
Well, I wanted to ask you just because you're on the school board.
No, I cannot.
Well,
I really cannot.
I mean, you said in court that you wouldn't have a problem with him coming back into a school, and you're on the school board here in Louisa County. Does that send a bad message? You aren't willing to talk with us about this?
He also gave us the brush off when we tried approaching him at school board functions.
Will you stop and talk with us for a second?
No, and trust, I cannot talk, under the circumstances, but nice that y'all coming here tonight.
But back taxes are something Jennings won't be able to duck, as the county treasurer says he'll receive no special treatment. And if he doesn't pay up, his property will be put up for sale.
I feel like the citizens of Louisa expect our county officials to be current with the taxes.
All told, Louisa County is owed more than $4 million in unpaid taxes. The treasurer tells us when folks like Alan Jennings don't pay their share, it can force everyone else's taxes to go up. In Louisa, AJ Legault, 8 News.
Thank you, AJ. And if you have a story for AJ, send him an email, ajinvestigates@wric.com, or find him on Facebook.